views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Open. I'm your host, Daren Jaime, and today we will update you on what's happening in and around our borough, as well as across New York City. Coming up on today's show, we go front and center, talking about the COVID-19 regulations on returning to the workplace. We'll have a legal correspondent with us here to tell us a little bit more about the things that you need to know. Then afterwards, we'll discuss how I Love NYC Small Business Initiative is celebrating and supporting small businesses. Stay tuned, you don't want to miss that. And then a little later on in the show, we'll talk about how VNSNY is helping to improve healthcare for members of the LGBTQ community. And then we'll learn a little bit more about a new policy brief highlighting racial disparities in reading and proficiency rates, the numbers harrowing. And finally, we'll see how a flag award is recognizing and celebrating an extraordinary public school teacher. So stay tuned because all this and much more is heading your way. Right now, we're officially open. And welcome to Open. Today is Wednesday, July 7th, and you're watching Open, a live interactive program that brings the Bronx and New York City straight to your TV sets. We also want to welcome our viewers as Open is being broadcast live simultaneously on the MNN channel. We also encourage you to stay connected to us on all of our social media platforms at BronxNet TV and, of course, our website at bronxnet.org. Well, some things have been going on through the course of the past week. We'll take you through a few of them with our Bronx updates. We start off with coronavirus news. The Delta variant is now comprising about 23% of cases in New York City. This, according to health officials. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio stated officials are monitoring the variant very carefully amid fears it could spark a resurgence of COVID-19 cases among unvaccinated people. Now, city data shows over the past 4 weeks, the Delta variant showed up in roughly 10% of cases tested for different coronavirus strains. However, the city's senior health advisor, Jay Varma, emphasized the battle against the coronavirus is not over, stating, quote, even though the strain of the virus appears to be more infectious and more dangerous, it appears also to be very responsive to the vaccine, end quote. In other news, the South Bronx is celebrating in remembrance community leader Jose Chima Soto with a street co-naming. Our BronxNet reporter, Sanji Lopez, brings us the story right now.
East 157th Street and Brook Avenue has a new name in celebration and remembrance of an esteemed community leader who passed away in 2015. The street is now co-named Jose Chema Soto Way.
It's also his birthday, so it was the perfect time to put that street name up. It's been long overdue. I have been pushing it for so many years, so I'm glad that is done.
He brought people together. It brought our children together to get them off the streets. And so it's a great honor to honor his legacy. And what better way than by giving him a street co-naming?
Soto founded Rincón Criollo and La Casita de Chema and was instrumental in the construction of many of the other casitas or little houses in the Melrose neighborhood, providing green space and cultural spaces for the residents of Melrose. Rincón Criollo is regarded as the premier space for the Puerto Rican musical genres of bomba y plena in the United States. During the event, musicians turned out to celebrate the life and legacy of Chema. His
legacy has been kept alive through me, through the family, through pleneros, through a whole community, the Bomba and Plena community, has been keeping his legacy alive. A lot of groups has been, born from this place, and they continue to teach the next generations coming out.
Jose was an inspiration to the community, especially to the Puerto Rican community and the Puerto Rican culture.
Apart from sharing a safe space for the community and helping build casitas throughout Melrose and beyond, Chema and family have also used the space to give back to the community by sharing resources in times of need.
Throughout the years, he's helped many people, not just, through COVID and us giving us, food pantry giveaways for the people who need it. It's been really hard. But this is something we've always done, even before the pandemic hit.
Reporting for BronxNet, Sonji Lopez.
And thank you, Sanji. And that is all the time we have for our Bronx updates. We encourage you, please stay with us. Don't go anywhere. Open continues right after this.
We built a media network for you.
BronxNet TV.
Come learn in your new state-of-the-art studios at Lehman College.
At Mercy College.
And coming soon to the South Bronx in the Hub.
Inspire with your stories, culture, history.
Your Bronx on BronxNet.
Engage with us.
Connect with us at your channels and at BronxNet.tv.
Learn, engage, inspire. BronxNet TV.
From the Bronx
to the world.
BronxNet.
And welcome back to the show. While coronavirus cases are declining and vaccinations are increasing daily, many companies have been using this opportunity to find a strategy to safely restore their offices to operations, which resemble where they were before the pandemic. Now, nearly a third of companies have yet to develop any vaccine policy, according to a survey of 770 companies. So, what are the issues with respect to complying with COVID-19 regulations in the workplace? Joining us to share a little bit more about this, we've got Patrick Boyd, who is the founding partner at the Boyd Law Group. And Patrick, good to have you here.
My pleasure to be here.
And so let's get at this here. When we talk about getting ready to get back into the workplace, we do know that companies are gearing up and employees, some are coming with reluctance, but yet and still it is the obligation of employers to have COVID regulations. Give us a little bit of an update as to where we are.
Sure, Darren. So I think the first issue that's coming to light a lot is whether or not employers can mandate that their workers returning are vaccinated. Right. And that's been an issue that's now been decided upon, or at least we've had guidance on that from the EEOC 2 times. That guidance generally standing for the proposition that, yes, an employer can say, I want you to come back to work. And when you come back to work, I want you to be vaccinated to return. Now, just to be clear, the EEOC has issued some guidance along those lines. One, the employers are supposed to appreciate the fact that some workers are still not going to have access or ready access to the vaccination. So we shouldn't have any socioeconomic discrimination going on with respect to saying you can only come back to work when you're vaccinated if people can't get that vaccination, right? And then there's 2 other items. The first is kind of an easy one because there's good established law on this, but there are people who have religious beliefs that dictate that they're not supposed to take certain vaccinations. And those people with those objections are still entitled to make those objections to taking a new vaccination. There's already established case law on how the employer is supposed to address that. So it's probably nothing novel for the virus to consider, but that's one issue. And the second and more interesting with respect to COVID is for those people that have particular disabilities, right? Perhaps they didn't take the vaccine because they're very vulnerable, and so they're worried that even if they take the vaccine, they may be exposed when they get back to work, because a lot of us don't know, I don't think any of us know for sure, how long the protections of the vaccines are going to last, right? For those workers, the general guidance is that the employers are supposed to have a dialogue with them. Might it be that, that those workers can come back on shifts that are less populated? Might those workers be able to come back wearing masks? Might those workers be able to continue to work remotely until they get more security in the workplace? So big picture answer, employers are allowed to require employees to be vaccinated, but there is some subtlety as to how to make sure that vaccination requirement is implemented to be fair and to get people back, but back safely and comfortably in their workplace.
Let me go from the stats of being an employee and share this perspective. If I'm an employee, I walk to my job says, okay, we don't have to wear a mask in this environment, but I'm a person that feels like I'm not so sure, Delta variant, and I'm worried about possibly exposing people at home who may not be vaccinated. And I want to wear my mask. Could I receive possibly a potential penalty if the rest of my employees, at my fellow coworkers at the job, don't wear masks and I opt to wear a mask? Could there be a penalty for wearing a mask now?
So there certainly wouldn't be a meaningful legal basis for penalizing somebody for taking that extra security measure. It would be no different than somebody wearing a mask, quite frankly, before COVID, if they were just concerned about virus exposure or otherwise. The thing to keep in mind, I think, for those workers, though, is that the employer may, as very much as you're saying, they have two tracks, right? The employer can choose to continue to have a mask requirement and social distancing, or the employer can choose not to have that mask mandate and not to require social distancing. Just to be clear, though, even in the more free of workplaces, if you will, those work environments where masks are not required and social distancing is not required, the employer is going to need to tell people who are not vaccinated, that is, those people who have not been vaccinated, to keep a mask on and to social distance. To be practical, it is a bit of the honor system in terms of whether or not employers are going to scrutinize everybody's vaccination proof or not. But ultimately, the workplace is supposed to be fair in that manner, and employers have these two choices. As to your question, if somebody's still concerned and they're still worried about being exposed, they can wear a mask. Indeed, they should wear a mask if they feel most comfortable doing that, and just go about doing their job to the best of their ability.
Yeah, let me ask the question about Title VII for a minute. Give us a little bit about Title VII and also the ADA.
Sure. Well, so those are the federal statutes that would define those types of accommodations required for people who either A, have a disability, that's the Disability Act, right? Or B, for some other reason, perhaps based on their religion, they feel like they're not fairly being required to get those vaccines. And in both of those cases, those workers have the opportunity to engage, and indeed the obligation along with the employer, to engage in some dialogue as to whether or not the workplace can be accommodative to their concerns, that is, accommodative to their religious concerns or accommodative as to their disability, in a manner such that they can feel protected, but nevertheless the employer can get things back in terms of getting everybody back to work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And when we talk about those with disabilities, obviously they have a certain set of accommodations that are going to be needed. Coming out of COVID-19, we know that a lot of people are still going to be worried about, first, those accommodations that were there pre-COVID and now post-COVID. And so do we look at it as being pretty hard for businesses to be able to accommodate those with the ADA requirements?
I think it's going to be a challenge for certain. And I think there's going to be a fair amount of debate as to what accommodation is reasonable. The law just stands for the proposition that the accommodation should be a reasonable accommodation. And what is reasonable is going to depend upon the status of the workplace, the type of the job the person does, right? Some jobs you have to be there at work to do it. Some jobs you don't, right? And indeed the size of the employer. The bigger the employer, the more capacity they have to offer accommodations, right? If you're a two-person business, however, you may not have that flexibility, and the law requires, or the law understands that accommodative flexibility does not exist as much for smaller businesses. And so there's going to be a balancing with respect to those accommodations and what's offered, and probably some debate about it, and probably some litigation on it too.
Yeah. As a lawyer, talk to me about what are you anticipating as some of your legal concerns that we can see now as we are reopening, coming into the workplace. What do you see as some of the things you'll be dealing with on your plate?
Well, I think maybe one of the most interesting aspects is this new understanding we have about the idea, on the one hand, that many workers and even many studies show that remote work is effective and can even make workers more productive, right? But on the other hand, the challenge that employers have in managing that remote workforce and making sure that people are doing their jobs, and perhaps most importantly, collaborating with the other people that do their jobs. It's one thing to know that John and Jane are working together well, and if they have an issue, one is down the hallway from another in an office or in a bullpen. It's a different situation to know that John and Jane are working together, but you have to count on them to Zoom with one another or interface with one another by calls. So one of the things that we're seeing as a significant request from employers is for guidance on remote work policies. how can I allow my workers on the one hand to work remotely, but on the other hand, how can I guarantee that they're being effective? How can I monitor their work? And what kind of standards and guideposts can I set for them to make sure if they're going to work from remotely and they're going to be accountable remotely, that I can feel comfortable that they're working remotely and being accountable. The interesting sort of macro observation from that point is that different employers are reacting to this differently. You may have seen Salesforce, which is a tremendously sized company. They've established a protocol where they're really trying to do everything they can to allow for a work from any place protocol for their workers. And they think that's good for morale, and they think that's good for productivity, and they're going in that direction. On the other hand, or on the other side of the polls, if you will, Goldman Sachs came out and said that they think remote work is an absolute aberration to the way people have worked, and that they expect people back to work as soon as possible. So obviously different industries, different leadership, and different corporate cultures, but I do think there's going to be a lot of challenges with respect to employers and how they enforce or not remote work policies and how much they embrace that or not.
Yeah, and you talk about that, you know, whether or not I have the option of working from home or coming in. Goldman Sachs is a great example. We know that Goldman Sachs does require its employees to actually come back. Now, talking to some that are familiar with Goldman Sachs, others that are familiar with other companies that are requiring people to come in, there's still this this set of hesitancy. Is there any option for those employees who say, listen, I don't feel comfortable, my job is telling me to come in. Do I have any legal recourse in saying, well, can we get a little stay here?
Absent an allowance from the employer, or absent a disability or religious basis, not so much. If the employer says come back to work, you're going to have to come back to work. I do think that the norms are going to change over time, and we may have an evolving culture altogether, but I don't quite know how that's going to play out. An interesting side observation, demographically, I think the report is now that 1.8 million women do not intend to go back to work. They were home for COVID. They had the opportunity to work with their kids, or maybe the obligation, or maybe both, to work with their kids in schooling, and have decided or opted that they're not going to go back. So that's that very much may be a significant loss for us in terms of a talented labor pool. It may also be something that tips the scales and makes some employers say, boy, I really want this woman to continue to work for me. I'm going to have to change my norms to allow her to continue to work, but to embrace that remote work protocol. So interesting insights on that point.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this, a lot is going to be on the plate, and a guy like yourself, doesn't like you'll be going out of business anytime soon. There'll be a lot to discuss and a lot to take to the courtroom. Patrick Boyd, thanks for being with us here.
Can I'd like to mention that unemployment entitlement option also, just because it's an interesting protocol, if you don't mind.
Real quick, because I got 30 seconds.
Oh, geez. Okay. So just to be clear, unemployment benefits for those people collecting the enhanced benefit will expire in September. And as a result, we do expect to see more people returning to work and a lot more hearty debate as they get back to work in the fall. Interesting developments to see.
All right, we'll bring you back, Patrick. Patrick Boyd from the Boyd Law Group. Thank you so much.
My pleasure as always.
All right, now, if you want to find out more information about Patrick and anything that we just discussed, please go to the website, theboydlawgroup.com, theboydlawgroup.com. All right, we're taking a quick break here on Open. We ask that you stay with us. We're coming right back right after this. And welcome back to the show. I Love New York. Small Business is an initiative to celebrate and support New York City small business owners who not only survived the first year of the pandemic, but who contributed in ways that had a meaningful impact on their communities as well as the economy. Now, 100 small business owners who represent the 5 boroughs of New York City and the diversity that makes NYC so special have been chosen as the winners of the I Love NYC Small Business Campaign. Now, here joining us to share more details is the CEO of Silver Lining, Carissa Reiniger, and then also the owner of Barrio BX, Tony Martinez. And Carissa and Tony, good to have you.
Thank you so much. Lovely to be here.
Yes,
same.
and so,
Thank you.
yeah, and congratulations, great work. When we talk about small businesses, obviously the lifeblood of America and here in New York City. Carissa, talk to us about this.
Yeah, so I'm actually originally Canadian, but I've lived in New York for well over a decade. So I consider myself a true New Yorker at this point. And I always say, you know, it's really hard to be a small business owner, no matter where you are in the world. It's really, really hard to be a small business owner in New York City. It is really, really, really hard to be a small business pandemic. And so when the 1-year anniversary of the lockdown in New York hit, my team and I were trying to think about something we could do for New York City small business owners to really honor the fact that it was a Herculean effort to get through the challenges that COVID presented. And the thing that really inspired me and kept me going on some of the hardest days that I had through, you know, the last 18 months was actually just talking to incredible small business owners who didn't just complain or whine or feel like they were victims, but actually thought to themselves, what can I do to support my community? And so that was the genesis of the idea for I Love NYC SMB. We did an open call starting on the 1-year anniversary of the New York City lockdown in March, and asked people to either nominate or apply for a spot in the program. We had hundreds of applications, which I just think is a testament to how many small businesses deserve a big thank you for all that they do for us every day. And out of those hundreds of applications, we interviewed everyone, vetted everyone, and chose 100 winning small businesses. And we've given each of those 100 businesses, Tony included, a $10,000 prize package, which includes business support, cash gifts, free tickets to Broadway, all sorts of stuff that's really cool. And our intention is to rally as much public support as we can around these 100 incredible, amazing small business owners that represent everything that's amazing about New York, and to really remind New Yorkers that the best parts of New York are the small businesses that are on every corner and every community. And without that, New York isn't New York. And so we want to make sure that New York's economy comes back, and we want to do it by really protecting the small businesses throughout the city, and not just doing, you know, a press release, but really putting our energy, our time, our resources into trying to be as supportive as humanly possible to the 100 winners that were chosen.
And Tony is a winner, and I want to bring him in right now. And I know Tony is handling his business. He's literally on the move as we speak right now. But talk to us a little bit about this, Tony, because for you, as a business owner, trying to navigate throughout COVID-19, what was it like for you?
It was first, you know, again, thank you for having us on the show, and it was a big honor to be selected to be one of the 100. Going through being a small business owner through the pandemic was a lot of mixed feelings, being overwhelmed, being scared of the unknown, what was going to happen. We were actually supposed to open last March, and we got delayed because of the pandemic. And we just took our time to understand all of these new rules, policies, guidelines that the city and state was putting out. And we opened on September 1st in the middle of the pandemic. Beautiful restaurant that you weren't even allowed to go inside of, because it was at the time when Governor Cuomo only allowed outdoor dining. So we just had to evolve and move, and just be flexible with, you know, all the constant changes that were being thrown at us, you know, and then also really create still that dining experience with these guidelines, where again, if you're hearing salsa music and reggaeton, your instinct is to dance, and then you're telling the customer, sorry, no dancing, you know, and they're like, why can't I dance? You know, so it was constant changing and working with the community and communicating with them. But we were also very grateful that the community supported us, and that there was a shift in mindset also with a lot of people saying, I don't have to go downtown Manhattan anymore. I can stay local to get a dining experience, or I'd rather support a local business, you know, so that was encouraging. You know, of course, now being part of this gave us a morale boost, if you will, because we're doing all this unglamorous work that you don't see, you know, and then, you know, and people don't care, you know, and that's just part of the job. And, you know, for us to do what we have to do, that ultimately the customer or guest is happy. So it was a lot of mixed feelings. And then now the final one is that we're seeing this light at the end of the tunnel, that we actually survived it. And we're gonna, you know, because it was sad also to see a lot of places that were institutions in New York close down permanently. And then we were like, oh, is that gonna be us? And then now we're like, oh, we're actually surviving and we're gonna make it, yes.
Yeah, and let me jump in here before I bring Carissa back and ask this question about getting that $10,000. What does that make? How does that make a difference for you as far as being able to handle your business and having some supportive services?
That it's like make or break sometimes, you know what I mean? Like it can help with not only subsidizing to get things for the market, subsidizing salary, you know, again, like it helps so much in different ways, you know, when we need to do renovations and construction, you know, that was also the things that we didn't foresee when we initially opened. We didn't have sidewalk and street seating area, and that was what was only permitted. So yes, okay, we're granted, okay, you can sit people outside on the sidewalk and the street. Okay, guess what? The city wasn't like, and here's money to pay for that construction. We had to come out of pocket. So this 10,000 is, you know, like it helps us just again in so many ways, and we're so grateful for it, you know. And then the program also just to see and hear and meet other small businesses and different, you know, from all, like from a spa to musicians, like just motivates us to say, hey, we're all in it together, you know. We appreciate the support that Carissa and Slap and Silver Lining has given us.
Yeah, Carissa, let me come out. Let me talk to you for a second before we get to wrapping up here. And share with us a little bit more about Silver Lining and how it's really been just that, a silver lining for so many people who've really tried to make it through the pandemic. Tony was right. There was times when people had to close their doors, and some people are still considering closing their doors, even though the city is talking about reopening.
Yeah, listen, we've been working with small businesses for 16 years. We've been in business for a long time. And our core business is that we have a technology program, a software program that helps small business owners set goals. And then we actually use behavior change science to wrap support around business owners to help them optimize their performance and hit their financial goals. And so when COVID hit, much before we dreamed up I Love NYC SMB, we realized really quickly that, you know, globally for every small business that we worked with, you know, this was going to have a major impact. So we made our program Pay What You Can. And basically since March 1st of 2020, we have been trying to do everything we can with the resources that we have to serve and support and help as many small businesses as humanly possible. And it's been, you know, Tony talks about the range of emotions of the last 18 months. And I would just echo that. You know, we have been through all of those emotions too, the stress and the overwhelm of needing to sort of meet the incredible demands of what was happening in the world, the possibility of trying to actually be helpful and meet amazing people like Tony and the other 99 winners and all the small businesses we work with globally, and see their perseverance and their passion and their commitment, the financial stress of, you know, making our program Pay What You Can and investing, you know, millions of dollars in programs like I Love NYC and SMB and everything else that we've been doing. But I honestly think I'll look back, and I think this is true for a lot of people, a lot of small business owners. I think I will look back at the sort of the COVID years of my business journey, and I'll think that they were some of the most rewarding because it showed us how bad things can get. And I think it reminded us that we have to be in it together. You don't get through something like this by being totally independent, sort of protecting yourself, removing yourself. You get through something like this by jumping in, being in community, supporting each other, taking whatever you have to offer and doing whatever you can to make it available to other people. And that's really what we tried to do. That's been our, and I have to give credit to my entire team because they've sacrificed personally, they've taken pay cuts. I mean, everyone has done everything that they can to try to serve and support as many amazing people like Tony as we can. And we're proud and we're grateful for the experiences that we've had in the midst of such a really challenging time.
Yeah. Carissa, thanks for the great work that you're doing. And Tony, great to have you. And again, congratulations. We want to congratulate you on the success of your small business. And Carissa, silver lining is probably the best thing that you could say in a time like this, and providing a silver lining. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And BronxNet, you guys are always welcome. Come to Barrio BX, 3764 East Tremont Avenue in BronxNet.
Got to come by, and as soon as we can, we'll make our way there. Now, we also do want to let our viewers know that there are 16 businesses that were from the Bronx that were winners, 23 from Brooklyn, 39 from Manhattan, 14 from Queens, and 8 from Staten Island. And congratulations goes out to all of the winners. Also want to let you know, if you want more information, don't hesitate to visit the website. I love Small Biz NYC. I love Small Biz NYC. We are taking a quick break here on Open. We do have more show when we return. Open continues coming up after this. And we're back here on the show. Many members of the LGBTQ community also expressed discomfort with the healthcare system. Now, health equity and closing gaps in healthcare disparities are major priorities in today's healthcare arena. Our next guest is a home care nurse who spent decades working both on the front lines and in leadership to improve healthcare for members of the LGBTQ community, and we thank him for joining us right now. He is the LGBTQ plus program manager at VNSNY, Arthur Finning. And Arthur, good to have you.
Thanks a lot, Daren. It's really great to be back with you.
Yeah, great to have you back, and great to have this conversation talking about this particular matter, because when we talk about the LGBTQ plus community, obviously a lot of things need to still be improved upon, and health care and health equity is one of those things. And I know that you're pretty much on the front lines with dealing with health equity, but from your vantage point, talk to us about health equity and how it really needs to be more impacted in the LGBTQ plus community.
Well, recognizing that need, Daren, VNSNY has taken on this process of developing an LGBTQ care type for our patients. And a care type is a data designation that reflects an important part of a patient's health profile. In this case, it references a patient who is self-identified and who elects to take advantage of the VNSNY's LGBTQ plus program and services. So we use the care type, which can help provide the providers better understanding of the healthcare needs, tailor the care, and also really assess the healthcare outcomes. For example, a care type can help to designate which kinds of health screening and health education should be targeted for the best health outcomes. In addition to providing information for the plan of care, a care type also enables clinicians and staff to collect and analyze data as well as the outcomes so we can provide the best evidence-based care. These are tools that are very important to use to help really develop and sustain healthcare equity.
And when we talk about healthcare equity, obviously we know that that's what everybody's looking for, equity, and particularly in this community. When we talk about VNSNY really dealing with this issue, talk to us about your clients and what you're hearing from them.
Well, our clients so far have really expressed a great appreciation and acknowledgement that VNSNY has taken the steps to really design a program and meet their specific healthcare needs, as well as to be able to help reach out and educate the population on what health experiences they should have and what healthcare screenings they should have. It's very hard now for anyone to navigate the healthcare system, but there's been so little work done up until now for the LGBTQ population that we've really gotten a very positive feedback from our LGBT community and the organizations that we're doing this.
And when we talk about stigmas, there's still some stigmas that are out there. There's still some things that have to be debunked. When we talk about this particular matter, What are some of the common things that come to mind that you find yourself having to debunk and really advocate for?
Well, I think, it's very important to have the understanding that really, many members of the LGBT community of all ages really express distrust and suspicion with the healthcare system because of years of discrimination and having had so many negative experiences with healthcare providers. This may have caused a delay in the healthcare, creating a negative impact on their health. So at VNSNY, we really work to ensure that our clinicians and staff behind the scenes are proficient in delivering culturally competent care to ensure that our patients feel welcomed and safe while in our care. So being able to provide this combination of services and understanding gives us really cultural humility so that we're really able to continue trying to understand all different cultures, and in this case, the LGBTQ culture. We're really, hoping to really stem any sign of stigma that may be out there for healthcare providers, especially at VNSNY.
Coming out of Pride Month, talk to us about, the awareness, because there's an awareness that comes through Pride Month, and people become more familiar and more tolerant, more acceptable. What has been your, I should say, takeaway out of Pride Month and the fact of the awareness aspect? Because the more people become aware of the disparities and the need for health equity, I think the quicker that we can see a change. So talk to us about what you've experienced during Pride Month.
Well, during this Pride Month, I've really made a focus on trying to emphasize our health and health care. And hopefully people will have that takeaway who I've met with, and organizations will have that takeaway. So I think this year, of course, coming out of COVID very slowly, we're really seeing that many people are really starting to look at their health and really try to be able to learn how they can take care of themselves better. I think that, right now, our LGBT program is a nice fit for that and really will help support the community to understand better how to take care of their health. What are the needs? What are the types of healthcare screening? What is home care services? All the benefits that the LGBT community has, but they may not be aware of it. So I'm really hoping that coming out of this Pride, we go forward with really trying to explore how better we can take care of our health. And we just don't put, the Pride Month back up on the shelf for another year. Right. That we really have a takeaway that let's this year going forward really look about how we can improve our health.
Yeah. Really quickly, if you could give us an opportunity to know some of the services that are actually available. If there's somebody from the LGBTQ community that's watching it saying, listen, how can I get some help and what's available? What would you tell them?
Well, I tell them that, we've targeted the program so that we really try to do the best we can for providing, the best care that people can receive while they're receiving our services, which can be the skilled nursing, physical therapy, many other services that we have, home health aides, community mental health. And we also really target this healthcare screening that I spoke about. Many times LGBT people aren't really sure of what screening is needed for their health and how to take care of themselves better. So we have, been able to collect resources and really be able to educate people to this need, as well as really being able to link them to care and to services once they're discharged from our care. So a lot of times, again, this information of what services are available when they're discharged, what community services are available, is not known by many people in the LGBT community. So we provide these services also for our patients.
Well, Arthur, thank you for joining us. I want to say happy Pride Month to you, and thanks for the great work that you're doing in educating a community and then also educating a wider community as to the needs of the LGBTQ community. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Daren. It's great to be back in the Bronx again, and I appreciate your support greatly.
Hey, great having you. All righty. Well, Arthur Fitting, our guest here, and he is the program manager at VNSNY for LGBTQ. And we want to let you know, if you want more information, don't hesitate to visit the website. You can visit them at vnsny.org/LGBT. And you can call them at 800-675-0391. We encourage you, please don't go anywhere. We still have more open coming up. We return coming up in a few.
If you're struggling to afford your internet bills during the pandemic, there's a temporary government program that may be able to help. It's called the Emergency Broadband Benefit, and it provides up to $50 monthly discount on your broadband bill to qualifying households. Find more information about the program, including if you qualify and how to enroll, at fcc.gov/broadbandbenefit, or call toll-free at 833-511-0311. That's 833-511-0311.
And we welcome you back to Open. Advocates for Children of New York released a new policy brief, turning the page on literacy instruction in New York City schools, which highlighted racial disparities in reading proficiency rates and calling on the city to invest part of its $7 billion in federal COVID-19 education funding towards a comprehensive effort to revamp the way it provides reading instruction to all students, who offer targeted interventions to those who need extra support. And here now, sharing more, is the Senior Special Education Policy Coordinator, Advocates for Children of New York, and Arise Coalition Coordinator, Maggie Moroff. And Maggie, good to have you.
Good to be here. Thank you so much.
Listen, as we talk about these federal funds that are actually out here and available, obviously, you'd like to see them directed in a special kind of way. Give us a little bit of background here.
Sure. So we see literacy as one of the great issues of our time. Just really briefly, Advocates for Children is a nonprofit organization that represents students and families in their effort to get quality education here in the city. And we focus on students from low-income backgrounds and students who face other challenges and barriers to a quality education. And we help thousands of families each year, and hundreds of those each year come to us around literacy concerns. So we've been looking at literacy for a while. There's so much that is known about how to teach reading, and so much of that isn't done in our public schools. So we put out this report to look at some of the data that's available and make some recommendations around funding and supporting those kids, providing, as you said, core instruction and intervention.
And when we talk about reading proficiency right here in the city of New York, obviously, a lot of work still needs to be done amongst our students. Give us an idea as to where we are in the area of reading proficiency.
Yeah, sure. It's distressing. So looking at data that's available through a couple different sources, through the NEEP, which I always forget what the acronym is for, but it's a national testing group that looks at reading comprehension, and then looking at our ELA tests that 4th through 8th graders take. Less than half of our 4th through 8th graders are reading proficiently, meaning that they can, see the text on the page, decode it, make sense of it, and apply it to what it is that they're reading, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. So less than half is pretty distressing already. But then one of the reasons that we're so interested in this is the numbers are dramatically worse when you look at this by race and by disability. I'm gonna look at my notes for a second so I get the numbers right, but less than, when you factor in race, only 16.7% of Black 4th graders and 18.1% of Hispanic 4th graders are reading at or above proficiency. And then when you factor in disability on top of that, the numbers are even more terrifying, right? So with 3.5% of Black 4th graders with disabilities and 4.4% of Hispanic 4th graders with disabilities reading proficiently. And we also looked a little bit at geography. This is BronxNet, so I can tell you that the numbers in the Bronx are distressing, both for kids and for adults in terms of literacy.
Right. When you look at these numbers, I mean, you talked to us about 16.7% when you talk about fourth graders, and you also talk about that and near that for Hispanics, I'm talking about 16.4%. That's atrocious.
That's atrocious.
When you look at numbers like that, why isn't the alarm sounded?
I don't know, Daren. Yeah, I think that there are a lot of people who care. I think that there are a lot of people at the Department of Education. There are a lot of educators at the street level that care. The problem is that, well, there are a lot of problems, but I think the basic obstacle is that schools are using old curriculum. For a long period of time, people thought that what we needed to do to teach students to read was put them in literacy-rich environments, make sure that the word walls looked good, make sure that there were excellent books in the classroom. That's really important. But science now very, very clearly has affirmed that we need to teach them how to sort of go step by step and learn, how to put sounds and letters together and sound out words they don't know. I say that because what has happened is that new curriculum is expensive. So schools tend to use what they have. Principals come to schools and they find closets full of old curriculum and they're making budgeting decisions. And so they use what's already there because they also want to buy other things for their students. It's not that they don't care about their students' well-being. The problem is that so much has been learned that old curriculum isn't serving our kids, and things have looked like this for a long time, right? So something has to change, which is why our recommendations, right? Like make it easy for the schools to do the right thing, to prepare their teachers to use the right curriculum.
Right. So when you're dealing with an outdated curriculum, obviously, I'll go back to what you said, like new curriculum is expensive, but children not learning at the old curriculum is costly.
Yeah, right. They grow up to be adults with low literacy rates. They grow up, they develop other problems along the way. In another professional life, I worked in the court system, and you have all of these older kids who are acting out, who develop mental health needs based on the fact that and I do want to say really clearly, this is not the fault of the students. This is the fault of the school system to teach them, because with that explicit instruction, these kids can learn to read.
Yeah. And when we talk about reading, talk about math, these are things that appear on these proficiency exams. Give us a little insight into what you know about these proficiency exams and how kids are faring, because with these numbers so dismal, we know that has to be the same thing too.
Yeah, right. The reading, I think this is what you're asking, but the reading reflects in any number of ways. It's not just, can I read the notes in front of me, but it's, can I read the word problems in math? Can I access the social studies curriculum? Can I do all of those other pieces of school that are critically, I said that wrong, but that are based on reading skills? Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, absolutely. And before we wrap up, I want to get your final take on this real quickly. So what would you like to see happen if you could put it in summary form?
Awesome. So we made a couple really, really specific recommendations, two of them around funding. There's this great big influx of money coming in post-COVID from the state and from the federal government, and we are looking for money in order to improve core instruction, so what all students learn, in teaching them to read, buying those evidence-based literacy programs and making them available to all the schools so the principals aren't making those tough decisions about how to spend their money. And then we're looking for additional money for intervention for those kids who continue to struggle. So the older students, older meaning 3rd grade through 12th grade, but also the kids with dyslexia and other learning-based disabilities. And then we also made a couple recommendations about making sure during the pandemic, some of our best trained educators were moved in order to fill classroom spots. We want to make sure that they get to go back to where they were to continue to provide support to teachers so that the teachers can continue to provide support to the students.
Yeah, the statistics are harrowing, and definitely we need some solutions. So Maggie, thank you for giving us a few of the solutions, and hopefully we can see some adaptation and some implementation in the time to come. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
All right. Maggie Moroff, our guest. Now, if you want more information, please don't hesitate to visit the website at advocatesforchildren.org, and then also follow them on Twitter and Instagram at AFC New York. We do have more show. We encourage you to stay with us. Open does continue coming up right after this. And we are back here on Open. The Flag Award for Teaching Excellence recognizes and celebrates extraordinary public school teachers who inspire learning through creativity, passion, as well as commitment. The grand prize will be awarded to one teacher from each borough of New York City. This last year during the pandemic was one of the hardest to really be a school teacher, but these teachers, they actually continue to strive. And here to share a little bit more about that is a music teacher at Celia Cruz Bronx High School of Music, Penelope Smetters-Jacono, and co-president of the Flag Foundation for Excellence in Education, Laura Twersky and Risa Daniels. And thank you, ladies, for joining us and being with us here on Open.
Wonderful. So nice to be here.
Thank you. And Penelope, congratulations. I'm going to ask you a little bit about, you're a music teacher doing some great things. Talk to us about your school and what you do.
Okay, so I'm the band director at Celia Cruz Bronx High School of Music. We've been open since 2003. I was on the planning team, so I'm the founding director of the program. And there I conduct 3 concert bands and 2 jazz bands and 1 after-school jazz band as well. So, and I am now in my 21st year teaching band. I just finished my 21st year.
Congratulations. And here you are nominated for the Flag Award. And, give us your thoughts, because here it is, you have an award for excellence. And as a teacher, I talked in the intro about COVID-19 and really navigating and still trying to be able to deal with students. And I know it had to be a challenge for you as well.
Well, so first of all, I was absolutely flabbergasted when I found out that I won. I can't even express my surprise. When awards like this and grants come up, we apply really often so that we can help fund our music programs. But you kind of apply and then you just leave them to the universe and go on with your life. So I did the interview early back in March with these lovely ladies, and then I kept going about the business of teaching through COVID-19 in our program. So we were in the blended model at our school. So I had 2 days a week where I was teaching in person, actual music, actual band, and then 3 days a week where I was teaching band online. I had about 19 different classes. They were smaller, so that made teaching online a little bit easier. And then our in-person classes, for a good chunk of time, we were actually at 12-foot spacing in the cafeteria with all the air purifiers and the masks and the instrument masks. So it was very surreal, but still awesome to be able to make music together. Yeah. So that's what we just tried to make music together through this and keep our spirits up and our program alive.
Yeah. And Risa and Laura, I'll let either one of you answer whichever one you want to jump in, but obviously talk about keeping your spirits up. This award actually does that. I mean, it really gives life to teachers who've actually made a significant contribution throughout the course of the year. Talk to us a little bit about the award.
Sure. So the award is only 2 years old. We started the award last year and, found really amazing teachers, and we're really excited to expand this year to all of New York City. Last year was just focused on Manhattan. And then of course, COVID hit. And so it was an entirely new experience for us, conducting everything over Zoom interviews. But what we found was really teachers who not only were adapting to remote learning and the challenges of COVID, but were thriving and really using the opportunity to Zoom with their students, Zoom with speakers from all over the world to really engage their students in new ways. And it was really, really inspiring for us to have those conversations and to meet teachers like Penelope and see just how they were adapting and thriving.
Yeah. And Laura, what was it like? I mean, it was a lot of applicants and it took some time to really dwindle down to get to these finalists.
Yeah, I mean, it was tough because we had so many wonderful teachers. We have a jury, a panel made up of 5, actually made up of philanthropists and people involved in education and the arts. So Risa and I always said we were kind of happy we didn't have to make that final decision. We left it to them. But of course we were thrilled and highly recommended Penelope for this award. So we're very happy to see her. And I will add, when we attended the surprise announcement at her school, it was so clear to see the impact that she has had. There were students that she had from her first year to her present year, and the auditorium was full. So it was just an incredible experience to be there.
Penelope, what was it like getting the news, and walk us through how that happened?
Okay, so I was proctoring the Regents exam upstairs. I had not even the smallest inkling that anything was going on. I was proctoring, and my principal came to get me and said he needed to show me something. And we're walking down the stairs, and he opened the door to the cafeteria, to the gym, and it was like mayhem, like thunderous applause. And I walked in, and I didn't know what was happening. And then I started to see people, and I saw one of my girls, Hilda, who was from my first year teaching, who's now a doctor that I haven't seen in like 20 years. And then I saw the superintendent of Bronx High Schools, who was the superintendent who hired me. And then I saw my husband, and I was like, what? What is happening here? And when it finally dawned on me, I mean, I just felt so overwhelmed and so grateful. I can't explain how it felt to see. These are the people who made me the teacher that I am. These students that I taught from the beginning of my career in 1999 until last week, all in the same room together, along with my mentors and the principal who hired me fresh out of college, and my students who had graduated a couple of days before. It was just such a wonderful feeling. I can't ever imagine another time where I'll have all those people in the same place again. So it was overwhelming and extremely humbling.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. And I know that you've got a $25,000 prize. And what's a teacher to do with $25,000?
You know, honestly, I'm not sure. I still am in complete shock. So I think I'm just gonna sit on it for a while and give it some thought.
Yeah.
Some thought on what would be best.
Yeah, but you talked about your history and literally the fact that you saw people from when you first got started, who's now a doctor, to your most recent students and your principal who hired the person. What really got you into just saying, listen, teaching is going to be my future? What inspired you to be a teacher?
You know, I think it came in a lot of small moments, but the one I can pinpoint is actually a little later than you'd expect. I know that some people who are teachers know they're going to be teachers from like the moment they're in high school or beyond. And for me, I wasn't totally sure. And I went to NYU for music education. And I can tell you, I knew that I was passionate about it and that I would be good at it in my senior year when I was doing my student teaching with Ray Wheeler at Stuyvesant High School. That's the moment that I can pinpoint as being like, wow, this is amazing. These kids are amazing, and doing this work is what I'm here to do. Wow. So it happened kind of late for me, I think.
Well, I'm glad it happened for you. By evidence of the fact that you've got this award, you did the right thing. And so thank you for being with us, and congratulations again on this $25,000 award and being nominated that Teacher of the Year.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All righty, Penelope, want to thank you. Also want to thank Laura and want to thank Risa as well. Glad to have you all here on the show.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, if you want more information, encourage you, please go to the website. How do you do that? flagaward.org. We also encourage you to follow them on social media. You can see them on Instagram and Twitter at Flag Award. Want to let you know that we come to the end of our show today. Want to thank all of our guests for joining us, and most of all, you, the viewer, for tuning in. Now, if you missed any part of today's show, of course, you can catch the recablecast on BronxNet's channel 67. If you have Verizon Files, that'd be channel 2133, or anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. Now, of course, we also want to thank all of our viewers who are watching on Manhattan Neighborhood Network, as Open is being broadcast live simultaneously on the MNN channel. If you desire to have a brand new, fresh episode of Open, encourage you to come back on Friday morning. My girl, Rena Valentine, will be here bringing you the best in arts and entertainment. Until the next time we meet, I'm Daren Jaime saying take care. God bless. You've been watching Open. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next week.